Hi, I'm Joni Patry, and welcome to my YouTube channel. Today I'd like to talk about the transit of Mercury. Mercury is the planet that is called the messenger god. It comes from Hermes, and Mercury deals with travel, motion, learning, communications, anything to do that extends information and gives information to others, really does where people can learn, people can grow. But Mercury's all about the thinking capacity in the mind and how we process information in our mind and how we learn. It also deals with not only learning, but everything to do with our communications. So it can deal with writing, because Mercury actually, as ruler of Gemini, rules the hands and deals with the written word. But it also deals with travel, and it is the planet that moves the fastest, second to the moon. So Mercury, and it does from our vantage point, move with the sun. So it stays in a sign approximately a month because it moves with the sun, but it actually will orbit the sun in only 44 days. But from our vantage point, we see it circling with the sun. So I want to talk about Mercury's transit because it goes retrograde a lot. And I know we all know about Mercury retrograde because everything seems to go haywire when Mercury's retrograde. So when a planet turns retrograde, it simply is that in the orbit alongside of Earth, when we tend to pass the planet, it appears to go backwards. But of course it's not really going backwards, but it appears. Now Mercury goes retrograde 3 times to 4 times a year for 3 weeks. So, and every time it goes retrograde in each year, it will be in the same element. So when Mercury goes retrograde in a water sign, then the next two Mercury retrogrades within that year will always be in water signs. So it shifts element per year, and that really does depict what's going on with the masses and the people. But when we look at Mercury as it travels through our charts, one thing you're going to want to look for is what degree does it go retrograde, in other words, where it stations before it turns retrograde, and what sign it stays retrograde in for that month, because that will be the place in your chart that's going to have a major impact. That's going to be a place where you have to focus. So just remember, 3 times a year, pay attention to what house Mercury is going back and forth, because it's going to make you pay attention to everything of what that house is about. So if Mercury is transiting in your first house, then there's going to be a lot of movement. You're going to feel compelled to move forward with things, make things happen. You may even find that you may go on a trip, because Mercury is always about traveling. It's always about learning. Maybe you're thinking about that new course you want to take, but everything to do about you will be about you wanting to learn. And that's what Mercury does for you, opens you up and makes you more versatile. And probably with it in your first house, you feel good, you feel younger. Mercury actually is very, very strong when it transits in the first house. Now, when Mercury transits into the second house, you may talk more. Remember, the second house deals with our speech. So you're more talkative, you're more communicative. You may find that you're thinking more about your financial situation and how you can make more money, and great ideas to pass on about business. Now, Mercury, the word mercantile actually comes from the word Mercury. So it deals with sales and promotions, and Mercury also deals with ways that we connect, such as the internet, any kind of media or means that we connect, which are computers, telephones, videos, any connection with information passed on. And of course, since it deals with travel, It can have a connection to airplanes and cars, things of that nature. So Mercury in the second house is going to deal with your thinking mind and how to create more money, probably something dealing with sales. And since it moves fast, you may be spending more money that month when Mercury transits your second house. Now, when Mercury goes into your third house, you will probably go on a short trip because the third house deals with travels and so does Mercury. So you might find that you're more in transit, you're in the car more, and you can even take a plane ride somewhere. Mercury in the third house is traveling. Or because the third house deals with learning and education, you may take that course, or you might find you're reading more, you're learning more. There can be lots of information that you absorb and you're really interested in when Mercury's in the third house. Also remember, you may have more connections with your brothers and your sisters with Mercury transiting in the third house. It gives you more drive in the third house. You're more ambitious and driven. Now, when Mercury goes into your fourth house, when it's transiting your fourth house, this will be a time when you have more family gatherings, when people come together, more conversations, more connections with the family and family members, or even your mother. So you'll find your mother calls you more when Mercury's transiting in the fourth house. And you'll find that if she's not here, you'll think about her more. Things of the past, old memories will arise because the fourth house does deal with the past. So when Mercury transits your fifth house, more connections with children, more creativity. Maybe this is the time that you get out that pen and start writing or journaling. Mercury in the third, Mercury in the fifth. Remember, the fifth house is the third house from the third house. So both these houses deal with creativity and writing and expressing yourself through your communications. So that's Mercury in the fifth. And maybe you're more playful, you have more fun. That's a fifth house matter as well. You go to the movies more, and it can even mean playing more with your children. Mercury in the sixth house, you're more concerned about your work. You're thinking about what you can do to make things happen in the office, in the workplace, because the sixth house deals with our conditions around work. Communicating better with your coworkers or your employees. And most of all, Mercury in your sixth house is when you start to think about how you can change your diet to get healthier. It is the house of health. But be aware that sometimes Mercury, as ruler of the lungs, can, if it's not placed in a good sign in your sixth house, can bring on maybe a cough or some colds or congestion. But Mercury in the sixth house, generally you may go on a trip, possibly for work. Now Mercury in the seventh house, this will have a lot of connotations to relationships, relating more to your partner, relating more in a way that you will definitely feel more connected, you feel more talkative, you feel like you want to get the lines of communications better with your partner. So this is what Mercury will bring you in the seventh house. And remember always, when you're looking at the transit of Mercury, not only is it exemplifying the house it's in, but it will be casting an aspect to the house opposite. So Mercury in the first house opposite the seventh house aspects the first house. So you and your partner come together. So Mercury, as it transits in the eighth house, this will bring up your need to really research things, to get to the core, to the bottom of things. And Mercury, while it transits in the eighth house, your mind is sharper. Mercury is the only planet that prospers well, does not lose strength in the eighth house. And so Mercury, while it's transiting the eighth house, will drudge up things from the past, some old family history sometimes. Or Mercury in the eighth house can give you the desire to really research some projects about things that are hidden that you really want to uncover and know more about. It can be a time that you can look into your financial situation as to what's going on, look at your taxes, all of that, because that's an eighth house matter. Plus, with Mercury casting its aspect from the eighth to the second house, it's all about figuring out your money at that time. Now, when Mercury transits in your 9th house, that's the house of higher learning. And this would be the time that possibly you could take that course, or you just become more in tune with thinking about your spiritual purpose, why you're here. And there may be a time where you feel like you're teaching more to others, you're giving information across to others, but usually of a truthful spiritual nature. And Mercury being in the 9th house, you most definitely would probably go on some kind of journeys or trips. So pay attention. This is the time that you would most likely travel, because not only is Mercury in the 9th, but it's casting its aspects to the 3rd. 9 and 3 are the houses that deal the most with education, learning, and travel. So Mercury, when it transits your 10th house, this means that your career is, you're thinking more in line with what's going on with your work and your career. And it is a good time to have job interviews, because you're able to communicate better, get your information across to people of what it is your ideal is and what you want out of a job or a position. And it's a good time to communicate and speak better to your boss. Or consider your own business. What would you do to create your own business? This is the time that you would come up with ideas. Mercury transit through the 10th. And as it aspects the 4th house, you bring together family in a good way, of the way that you want to open the lines of communications better with your family members, and things are prospering well at work. So as Mercury transits through your 11th house, you're going to find your friends are more talkative and you want to be more in social groups and communicating more. You pick up the phone more, you pick up the computer more. You are constantly reconnecting with friends, with groups, with organizations. And it is a time when you're really making plans for the future, your hopes, your dreams, your ambitions, your desires. That's what Mercury in the 11th house will accentuate. Now, as Mercury transits into your 12th house, it's time for you to kind of pull back, pull in, and contemplate the month of how things have been going to better understand your cycle. Mercury in the 12th house, your dreams could be a little bit more vivid. You can get information out of your dreams. Pay attention to what your dreams are trying to tell you. Mercury is information, and the 12th house is sleep and dreams. Plus, Mercury in the 12th house would be a great time for meditation, to really be alone and contemplate your life and your experiences, and think about things and lessons that you've learned from the past. These are all 12th house experiences, and you may be thinking about a journey. And remember, you're in preparation right before a brand new beginning, when Mercury again will cross over into your 1st house. So that is some very pertinent information to better understand planet Mercury as it cycles through your chart, to better understand your life. So with that, I'd like to close. If you would like more information on learning Vedic astrology, go to my university, which is University of Vedic Astrology.com. Or if you would like to learn more about me and you would like a reading, you can always go to my website, which is galacticcenter.org. Thank you.